Okay, and here we go. It's Q3, January. I welcome mentors working with teachers in their second year in the profession. So I really honor your work and thank you for taking the time out to spend a little bit of time with me to talk about mentor coaching cycles. So with no further ado, let's get going. Actually, I'm going to back up just a minute because I want to drop the attendance link into the chat box. Please record your attendance. And there's that attendance link. And now we can move forward. All right, so it's a new year, and just like you're doing in your classrooms, I just kind of want to set the, I want to do a reset for the mentor expectations. For those of you working with second year teachers, the expectation is you do 4 quarterly coaching cycles. Now, it looks different in every classroom. And it looks different in every pairing. So I don't want you to feel locked into what I present here. Know that there's lots of flexibility, and you can always reach out to me if you have any questions on how it's going. I do ask that you complete the pre and post conference forms each quarter. At the end of our time here, I will ask you to get into your drive folders and check to make sure you have those. And the third expectation is to participate in the quarterly mentor Zoom, and today is January 11th. All right, so just to reiterate the coaching cycle and the expectation, what the coaching cycle, as a reminder to everyone, is that the pre-conference is when you sit down with your mentor, you contact your mentor, and you decide, number one, when's the visit going to happen, set a focus for that visit, and then decide what data collection would best benefit your mentee with your time in the classroom. And then the classroom visit. Again, always, always, always be a witness to the good. Remember that you are not the evaluator. That is your principal's job. Your role is to be a cheerleader, take data and be as much of a support to them as possible. And then the third piece of that coaching cycle is the post-conference. And that's when you sit down with your mentee, you review the data that you took, talk about some reflections based on the data and next steps. Now that's a very broad overview, but it's very succinct and sets the expectation for what those coaching cycles should look like. All right, now what we're going to do during our time today is we're going to dig down deeper into some of the data collection tools. I know that I've had some questions about them, and in a perfect world, I would have a sample for every single data collection tool that I've offered you, but I'm just not there yet. But what I did have a chance to do is to get, looks like 2, 4, 6, 7 samples for you. So we're really going to dig down into those particular data collection tools, with the caveat that I will have the other samples available in our next Zoom session. Okay, so as you're looking at that, as you're looking at the screen, you'll notice that some of the data collection tools have a sample, and that's the link to the sample. All right, so now, why did I choose the ones that I chose? I chose the ones that I chose because that's your survey results told me those are the ones that you've used so far. So I thought that was a good place to start on the ones that have been used already. So it's the transition observation log, the procedures observation log, ratio of interactions to question chart, and level of questioning. So, okay, so those are the ones that we're going to dig down deeper into. All right. So the transition observation log. Now, if you look on the left-hand side, that's what the form actually looks like, the transition observation form. It gives you a chance to write a description when the transition began and when it ended and what was the time of that total transition. So Now, the way I've set these forms up for you is you can copy them into your drive, which is absolutely an option, or you can just make a copy, which is kind of my style. My style as a coach was to have the paper pencil and the actual piece of paper that I took data on. It just was easier. I'm kind of old school that way, but that just because I do it that way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. But that the samples are just handwritten, which is, it's perfectly okay just to get a copy of the form and handwrite your notes. And then that's what you would show to your mentee when you have your post conference. So this particular sample, it looks like there was 5 transitions during the 1 hour lesson. There was a transition from seat work to the lesson start, whole group to small group to whole group, then whole to small, and then small to independent, which is very common in many classrooms where you go from whole instruction to small group and then back out to whole. And then there's almost always an opportunity for students to do some independent work. So if you look at this transition log, you'll notice that some of the transitions were 3 minutes, 4, 5, 2. So that data is an opportunity for your mentee if you choose to do this, data form. And it's an opportunity for your mentee to reflect on which transitions are taking longer or not. And I always position the mentee to be the decision maker. So maybe this particular goal for this mentee on this sample is a 2-minute transition. So you'll notice here that some of them are right on the mark. Some of them might have a little bit of work. But again, the purpose of this is to analyze transition times. You want to target, you want to cheerlead the successful transitions that meet the 2-minute goal, as well as problem solve to reduce transition minutes. Because at the end of the day, transitions are lost instructional time. And those minutes add up over the days, weeks, and months. So if you add up that 7, 8, 9, 10, that's 15 in this particular lesson. That's 15 minutes of transition that is non-instructional time. So it's always a good idea to look at transitions. So that's that form. Okay, moving on. The procedures observation log. So on the left-hand side, again, is just the blank copy. My style is to print it off, take the piece of paper into the classroom, and then I'm just going to make notes on that piece of paper. And it's the procedures observation form in this case. So on this form, there's a place for you to describe the procedure that you see. And there's a place to, now the form says to tally, but that's not all. Tallying is fine, but you can just write the number as well. How many students are actually following that procedure? So if you look at the form itself, the sample, you'll notice that there was a procedure for completing seat work, a lineup procedure, turn in the homework, small group, a turn and talk, independent work, and then I calculated a percentage of the students following the procedure. So the goal, as always, is for 80% of students to follow procedures, because if you can get 80% of kids to be following those procedures, then your mentee has time to target the other kids who are not following the procedure. And the reality is that you might have anomalies where you get 100%, but it's not the reality of classrooms today. The goal is 80%. So if you look there, you can analyze the procedures that met the 80% threshold, and some did and some didn't. So it definitely, this particular observation log opens the door to conversation about which procedures need to be shored up. Okay, so the next one is the ratio of interactions. Now, what you're looking at on the left-hand side is I didn't create that form. This particular form was created by Randy Sprick, and he is the king of champs, and he has a ton of forms to gather data. And this particular one gives the mentor an opportunity to gather data on what the percentage of positive interactions versus the number of negative interactions. At the end of the day, Randy Sprick calls out there should be 3 times as many positive to negative. So for every negative interaction, there should be 3 positive interactions. So that's Randy Sprick. That's his claim to fame, is a 3-to-1. If you look at Jim Knight, from the Instructional Coaching Institute, his recommendation is 5-to-1. But my recommendation is there should really just be more positive than negative interactions. So now let's really dig down into this form. You'll notice that there's a coding system at the top. And Randy Sprick, the Randy Sprick's form, he has called out male, female, class-wide, individual. But if you look at the form, the sample that I filled out, I marked out male and female because that's just not something that I wanted to shine the spotlight on. But the beauty of this form is that it can be individualized to whatever the mentee wants you to really look at. So that's why you see an N and an A for Amber. So not only can this form allow the mentor to identify attention to positive for class-wide and individual, but also specific students themselves. So when you look at this form, you'll see that there was 12 positive interactions and 14 negative interactions, which is actually very common in classrooms. So it's actually a 1-to-1 ratio. The goal is to have 3 positive interactions to every negative interaction. So if this data was taken, it would definitely open up the conversation to how a mentee could increase those positive interactions with kids. The purpose of this particular ratio of interactions data form is to really analyze how often praise is happening versus correction. And, teachers can learn a lot about themselves and how they guide learning by analyzing how often they praise students for appropriate behavior and how often they correct students for inappropriate behavior. Ratio of interaction lets the teacher know how she or he sees students doing what they are supposed to be doing versus the number of times a teacher corrects students. At the end of the day, the goal is to have more positive than negative interactions within a classroom. And again, the beauty of this particular form is that you can code it to whatever the mentee wants to shine the spotlight on. The next form is the question chart. There's actually a question chart and then the level of question. Now, what you're looking at right now is the level of questioning. So this particular form allows the mentor to scribe the questions that a mentee is asking students within the lesson, so that the mentee can analyze what level of questioning.
I am. Oh, hi there. I'm also
Lower
on
level,
another meeting.
higher level.
Double booked.
So I'm going to just mute that real quick. If you guys just give me a sec here. I'm going to mute that. Okay, so again, the level of questioning form allows you to scribe the questions and then assign what level of, is it a higher level or a lower level question when you think about Bloom's taxonomy. This particular form really attends to Bloom's. And at the end of the day, teachers generally ask a lot of questions, 4 per minute. But oftentimes they're closed questions, right or wrong questions, and they're not necessarily always the higher level questioning. They're just questioning to make sure that students are attending to the lesson and maybe they understand. So this particular form allows a mentee to analyze their level of questioning and with the hopes of adding some more rigorous higher level questioning to their lessons in general. Okay, so this is the level of questioning form. There is also a question chart. Now, I don't have a sample for that yet. However, it's a little different. The question chart allows the mentor to scribe the questions, but it asks the mentor to identify them in a different way. It gives the mentor the opportunity to identify what kind of question is. Is it an opinion or right or wrong? Opinion questions don't have a right or wrong answer, and teachers usually ask right or wrong questions to confirm whether students know the content or can demonstrate the skills they have been learning. So what kind of question? Is it an opinion or is it a right wrong to confirm understanding? It also allows the mentor or whoever's taking the data to identify what type of question. Is it an open or closed question? Open questions have an infinite number of responses, while closed questions have a finite number of responses. So the difference could be, an open question would be, what do you think of Hemingway? A closed question would be, what was Hemingway's first novel? And the last column is the level, and typically anybody taking data on the level on questions typically want to identify what level according to Bloom's taxonomy, and that's great. And on the slide there, you see a graphic of the 6 levels according to Bloom's taxonomy. Another way to level questions is into three more general categories of knowledge, skill, and big idea. So a knowledge, if you don't want to get down and dirty into the Bloom's taxonomy, you could maybe just generalize questions into a knowledge. Are they demonstrate? Is the question demonstrating that students remember information? Or a skill, which is it a question that prompts students to explain how to do something? Or is it a big idea question? A prompt which asks students to talk about themes, concepts, ideas, or content structure. So you have a lot of flexibility on this question chart form if you choose to use that, or if your mentee would like for you to take data on what kind of questioning is happening within the classroom. So you have 2 different question charts to choose from. Okay, so the next one is time on task. Now, time on task is a quantitative as opposed to qualitative way to, are kids doing what they're supposed to be doing? That's what it really measures. Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And the way to take that data is the particular form that you're looking at allows for 2 5-minute periods of time. Each of those sets of boxes, the top box of 60 and the bottom box of 60, each one of those is 5 minutes. And the way to take this data is to look at every single student. You would systematically just start on one side or the other, keeping track that you're looking at every kid the same amount of time, and systematically, so that you're looking at every single kid. So you would look at the first kid for 5 seconds. Is that kid on task or not? Put a plus or a minus. Go to the next kid. Is that kid on, watch that kid for 5 seconds. Is he on task or not? Put a minus or a plus. And then you would just continue that process. 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, putting your pluses and minuses within those 60 boxes. And then what you would have the opportunity to do is get a percentage of how many kids are on task during 2 5-minute sessions within that lesson. At the end of the day, this is an example of behavioral engagement rather than cognitive engagement, because really you're looking at our kids doing what you're asking them to do. If you're looking for cognitive engagement, that particular data is best gleaned from work samples or other ways. But this particular form is, are kids doing what I'm asking them to do, and how many, and what's that percentage? The next one is the behavior monitoring form. I really like this form because it allows you to analyze student behavior on an individual level. If you look at the form, this is again a Randy Sprick form, and there's a coding system. Now, Randy Sprick's coding system, he's just calling out non-compliance or talking out or out of seat or bothering others. So those are definitely things that that as a mentor you can take data on. However, the beauty of this form is that you can really tailor it to particular behaviors that the mentee wants to shine the spotlight on. So if you look at the sample there, I wrote down every single kid in the classroom, and then as the lesson went on, if I saw a student talking out, I put a T next to the student's name. You'll notice there that Paige has a T and Gavin has an HHP, which means that he was bothering others and he was playing with a toy. So you're really taking that data based on the coding system that the mentee should be developing, and letting you know what they want you to shine the spotlight on. And my suggestion would be to add things like disruptions, disrespectful behavior. Those definitely could be added to the coding system. And then during the debrief, during the post conference, it opens up the conversation to identify what I call oils and waters. There's always kids that shouldn't be sitting together, and I call them oils and waters. So if you're looking at the data, maybe Dylan, if you look at the second row, maybe Dylan, Hunter, and Jasmine shouldn't be sitting together because they're talking all the time. So that I would identify them as oils and waters in a group of students. So that's the behavior monitoring form. Again, it gives you an opportunity to take data on individual misbehavior that might be happening in the classroom. And the last one is the classroom activities log. What you see on the left is it's an opportunity to capture the structure of the entire lesson. On the sample, the beginning routine started at 9:05 and it ended at 9:12. So that the beginning routine was 7 minutes. So you can see that identified on that form. And then whole group started at 9:12, ended at 9:30. That's 18 minutes. And then there was small group, 5 minutes, and then the independent work. And you see at the bottom there that the transitions are calculated as well. So this particular form really gives an opportunity for a mentee to look at what as a new to profession teacher in their second year, what are their lessons spending the most time on? Is there a balance between whole group, small group? Is there how long are the transitions taking? It really gives a mentee an opportunity to reflect on their instructional minutes versus their non-instructional minutes, as well as the structure of their lessons. At the end of the day, the more students who are engaged in learning activities, the more they will learn. So this particular form really captures the structure of a lesson and where those 60 minutes of instructional time are being devoted. Okay, so I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions about any of the information that I've been presenting? Okay, so I am going to remind everyone about the logistics about the classroom visit. Remember that 2A pays for the subs, but there's a process. Just like everything in the world, there's a process, there's a procedure to get things done. So when you land on your classroom visit, if you feel like you want to have a sub that day, you'll want to reach out to me with that date. And then you want to secure your sub through the absence management. Our department we provide the money for the sub, but not the manpower. So you'll want to go through your own procedure on and secure your own sub for that time. You'll get that sign in, which you'll sign and you'll return to me. And then your time card should reflect in service. And so I always give all that information on the email with the sign in, and the reminder to put a little note in your time card on that date when you do the classroom visit and you have the sub, setting your secretary up for success with the correct subcode. So that's the process. And these are the pre and the post conference form for Q3. So I just noticed a typo on one of those. It should be Q3 pre-conference, and then Q3 post-conference. I'll make sure that everything's correct in your drives if that typo is still on the forms. But remember that the pre and the post-conference forms should be sitting in your drives waiting for you to fill out. Okay, so I am going to drop this article into the chat box. It's a pretty good article. I'm not going to ask that you read it right now, but if you have time, I recommend, it's a good read. It's an easy, good read. I recommend that you read this because it lines out the qualities of exceptional mentor teachers. And so I read the article, and what the article called out is that good mentors have good ears. They're good listeners. They model, but resist molding, allowing mentees to create their own teaching style. Good mentors connect hows and whys of teaching, and they strike the right balance, meaning between work and home life. Do you know that I talked with a new to profession teacher, she's new to district teacher just this week, and she's staying in her classroom till midnight on a regular basis. And I absolutely told her that she needs to go home at 5 o'clock every single day. So good. So mentors model that right balance between work and home life. At the end of the day, family comes first. Work is super important, but having a good balance between your work life and your home life is super important. Good mentors help mentees work the system. You are a veteran teacher at your site. You know the ins and outs of how things are supposed to go. So you have that opportunity to help your mentee work through your site system. And mentees show up, as well as they encourage reflection. And the goal of reflection for growth is the reason why mentees meet weekly, even when the mentee has no specific questions or concerns. Having that opportunity to just problem solve and chat together and talk about reflection is really important in a mentoring relationship. So I dropped that link into the chat box. I hope you have an opportunity to pull it up, print it off, read it whenever you have a chance, and get some good information from it. Okay, one more plug for the coaching cycle. And there's the big ideas: the pre-conference, set a focus for the visit. What data collection are you going to take? During classroom visit, be a witness to the good, take your data. And the post-conference is all about reflection and next steps. And before I cue you to go into your folders to look for your pre-conference and your post-conference. Our last Zoom for the fourth quarter is going to be March 21st. So mark your calendars for March 21st. It's our last Zoom. And then I'm going to go back, and I would like everyone to take an opportunity to get into your drives and make sure you have your pre and your post conference forms sitting in your drive. If you don't, now's a great time to stick around and I can help you get to that. And if you see them sitting in your drive, waiting for you, all ready to rock and roll, I bid you a good night and have a great quarter, and I'll see you in March. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Michelle. Talk to you
All right.
soon.
Good night.
Hi, Michelle. I have
Thank
a question.
you.
Oh, sorry.
Good night. Shoshana, yours aren't in there. I'm gonna put them in there right now.
Okay, thank you so much. I had another question for you
Of
too.
course, of course.
I messed up and didn't do my second quarter not evaluation, I'm sorry, my observation. But I talk to my mentee all the time, like our classrooms are right next door to each other and I see a lot of what she does. Should I try to do like an observation at the start of this quarter and then maybe at the end, or
No, I wouldn't. No.
Okay.
I would still fill out your forms and just just say on the forms. I didn't do an observation, but here's some of the things that we're working on together, and let it be.
Okay.
And then
All right,
just
yeah.
do your third, because I get it, you know, you guys are running a classroom. I get it. You know, things don't always go the way you want them to, and just be transparent on the pre and post conference forms and just fill them out. That would be great. But don't feel like you have to go back and redo work from the second quarter, because that's over and done with.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
and I'm gonna get those forms into your drive right now. As soon as I close the Zoom, I'll get them there for you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
All right, good night.